Tyres are one of the most important components on your bike, and balancing the grip, weight and rolling resistance is absolutely crucial for success. Heavier duty tyres and soft compound rubber are used for downhill bikes, whereas lighter casings, harder compounds and closer tread blocks are used for cross country for faster rolling, and everything in between.
Yeah, hold on Will, can we start from the basics please? So what are they made of?
Okay, so tyres are made from a carcass, which is woven strands of fabric covered in rubber. Now, the rubber forms really important parts of the tyre. It keeps the air in on tubeless tyres, it creates the tread blocks which make you grip the surface of the ground. The grip of the tread block is called mechanical grip, and the grip from the rubber itself is called chemical grip, but we'll get more into that later. The woven strands of fabric obviously add weight, as does more rubber that covers the woven strands of fabric, but they add puncture protection, and also more rubber and more fabric means a slower rebound. So it's not like your suspension where you can tune how fast the tyre rebounds. The qualities are inherent in the tyre. So this means that a tyre with more rubber and more fabric will rebound more slowly, which means more traction. So this is a typical cross-country tyre. So it's very light. You can probably see the sidewalls are really, really thin and flexible, and there's not a lot to them. So there's a reason for that. So thinner sidewalls mean lighter weight, which means faster rolling, because it's the rolling weight of the tyre that builds inertia as you accelerate, and obviously you've got to get rid of that inertia when you decelerate. Thinner sidewalls also can mean more traction in certain situations, so they're very compliant over the ground. So when you're on a cross-country track with lots of roots, lots of vibration, the sidewall of the tyre deflecting will help it to gain grip. You can see that the tread blocks on this tyre are quite shallow, so that means that there's less rubber, which makes it lighter, and it also means that they deflect less, so they should roll faster. And they're quite closely spaced, which again decreases rolling resistance but also decreases grip.
Are they more likely for puncturing as well?
Yes, they are. So if you're going over lots of really tough surfaces, like rocky surfaces, or places where you could get pinch flats, you probably want something more aggressive like this. So this is an enduro or downhill tyre from Goodyear, and it's got really thick, inflexible sidewalls that are actually quite hard to pinch. So that provides two types of puncture protection. So one type is from pinch punctures, which is where the tyre is pinched between the ground and the rim, and that can cause a snake bite, which is what they sometimes call it. It also prevents punctures from slashes. So if you go over a rock or you go past a rock, it can slash the sidewall. You can see that the tread blocks are much more widely spaced on this tyre, which means that there's more mechanical grip because the tyre can dig into the ground, but it does mean that it rolls slower because every time the tyre rolls, it has to go up over the tread block, back down, up over the tread block, back down, all the way around. And the shoulders on a more aggressive enduro or downhill tyre are much taller. So these tall shoulders give you cornering grip and grip when you're on off camber. This is a semi-slick tyre, so you might see this on the back of an enduro bike or a trail bike. So you've got very closely spaced tread blocks in the middle, but a more aggressive, taller shoulder profile. So it's designed to give you the best of both worlds, which is fast rolling, but also good cornering and off-camber traction. The only disadvantage is because of the closely spaced tread blocks in the middle, you get less braking performance.
Is that also a more dry weather tyre as opposed to a wet weather tyre?
Absolutely, mud, it would get clogged up. Unlike this tyre, so this is a mud spike. So this has incredibly tall, aggressive tread blocks, which are really widely spaced apart, and then massive tall shoulder knobs. So this is going to roll about as slow as you can get for a mountain bike tyre, but it's going to be absolutely tenacious in terms of grip on wet mud. So yeah, this is a mud spike tyre, super aggressive for super gnarly wet conditions.
Just what we need in the UK.
Yeah, not this time of year, thankfully. You've probably heard about TPI, and that stands for threads per inch. Slightly counterintuitive because more threads per inch actually means a thinner casing. So more threads per inch, so say 120 or even 170 TPI means that each strand of woven fabric is thinner and therefore lighter, but offering less protection and more compliance. Whereas for downhill tyres, you often get 60 TPI, which is really thick fibres. There's less per inch, but it's actually a thicker casing. Now we need to get onto single and dual ply tyres. Single ply tyres is something like this, a very thin casing. whereas a dual ply tyre is much thicker like this one. And some companies like Continental are even coming up with a 6-ply tyre for absolutely massive puncture protection.
So like people who are riding hardline and rampage?
Yes, people who are riding really rocky tracks.
Okay, mate, so what about compounds?
So compound refers to the mix of rubber that make up the outside of the tyre, including the tread blocks. So tyres are made from a mix of natural rubber from rubber trees and synthetic rubber from crude oil. So clever rubber scientists can mix the rubber together to get the characteristics that they want. So ideally, in a perfect world, you'd want something that was hard wearing, fast rolling, and grippy and slow rebounding. You can't pick all of those things. You have to choose the ones that are most important to you. So this is a really soft compound downhill tyre. So the tread blocks rebound really slowly. You get maximum traction, but you get the slowest rolling speed and you also get the fastest wear. So downhill tyres tend to be the softest and the grippiest.
You can never have it all, can you?
You can never have it all. You've got to choose. Something like this cross-country tyre is going to be made from the hardest compound rubber. It means it's the fastest rolling and the hardest wearing, but it also means the least traction.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for a tyre with multiple compounds.
Yeah, I liked that fact about the rubber tree and the synthetic rubber. I literally only ever thought it came from the rubber tree.
No, it'd just be natural rubber, and then you couldn't choose the characteristics you want as much as you'd desire. So something like an e-bike tyre, like this e-bike you got here, Max.
Oh yeah.
E-bike tyres have to have very high shear strength. Now, do you remember the rubber that you had in your pencil case at school?
Yeah.
It was easy to tear apart, wasn't it? E-bike tyres have loads of torque put through them, and that torque wants to rip the knobs off the tyres. So what manufacturers can do is put additives into the rubber to increase the shear strength whilst trying to maintain a soft compound. So it is amazing the technology that goes into these tyres. Okay, just to add even more complexity, you can get multiple compound tyres. Now that's a tyre that uses more than one rubber compound in the tyre. So this is a Maxxis 3C tyre. So Maxxis is 3C, that means it's a triple compound tyre. So the hardest compound rubber forms the base of the centre of the tread blocks. So underneath there's a foundation of harder rubber, and then on top in the centre is softer rubber. And then the softest rubber of all, the third compound, forms the shoulder blocks. Now, the reason for that is the hard compound rubber underneath makes the tread blocks stable. So it means they don't roll over and fold all over the place, which means it rolls slightly faster and it's more predictable. The medium compound rubber goes on the top, on the surface of the center tread blocks. This keeps the tyre rolling kind of fast, but gives you more traction, and it also means that the wear is acceptable. The softest rubber, the third compound, that goes on the shoulders. So these see the least time in contact with the ground. So they only see contact with the ground when you're cornering or when you're on the off camber. So they can be the softest, which gives you maximum cornering grip and maximum grip on off camber.
They also sound like the most expensive tyres.
They are the most expensive. Multiple compound tyres are harder to make and therefore they're more expensive for you, the consumer. But they do offer the best performance. So the compound of the tyres is called the durometer, and it's measured on the Shore A scale for tyres, with 0 being the softest and 100 being the hardest. Mountain bike tyres tend to be between 40 to 60A on the Shore A scale, and that's the durometer. So 40A is really soft, so something like a downhill tyre is probably around 40A, with a cross-country tyre being up around 60A. Maxxis used to name these, so if you're very old like me, you can remember that on the Shore A scale, there was 40A, which is slow rese, 42A, which is super tacky, and then there was Max Pro, which was 60A. Now Maxxis don't use those denominations anymore, but that is the three compounds, as I understand it, that make up the 3C tyres. Fun fact for you.
I've heard the words mechanical and chemical grip thrown around the office quite a few times when talking about tyres. What does that mean?
So mechanical grip refers to the way that the tread blocks interact with the ground. So if you have tread blocks with wide spacing that scoop up a lot of mud and a lot of ground in between the blocks in the tyre, that will provide you with more traction, and that is your mechanical grip. Your chemical grip, or sometimes called wet grip, is the grip from the actual rubbery surface itself adhering to whatever's underneath it. So usually when you talk about wet rock or wet roots, you're talking about chemical grip. Now the chemical grip is defined by the durometer of the rubber. So softer rubber gives you more chemical grip. It does change the way that the tread blocks move around, so mechanical grip is affected by it, but much less so. Okay, so when you're buying tyres, what do you need to know? So the manufacturer is usually written in big letters on the sidewall. Then the design of the tread pattern is usually the name of the tyre. So for Maxxis, it could be the Assegai or the High Roller, or the Crypto Tower for Continental, or the Warden for WTB. So that is what your tread pattern looks like. Then you've got your width and your size. So your size has to fit your wheel, so 29 inch, 27.5 inch, or if you're old school, 26 inch. 2.5 inch here, that was the width of the tyre, or more correctly, like the volume, so how wide the tyre is. And then you've got your other denominations which tell you the casing. So EXO protection, that's Maxxis's trail casing. Or you might find with WTB, they're just called tough and light. And Schwalbe, there's super race all the way up to super ground and a whole load of them in between. So that's your idiot's guide to tyres. If we missed anything, please do let us know in the comments and check out this video next.